Welcome to the Freud's Angels podcast, where two highly intuitive women dig into everyday problems using our connection to the divine, psychology, and energy work.
We support you in your self-awareness, growth, and aid you in your shadow work. Now we're your hosts.
I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Grace. Let's get into the show.
Hey, angels. Welcome back to the podcast. We are on episode, 184? 185. Oh, my God. I was rushing because I didn't have my notebook open today because we were doing an interview. I was like, oh, no, now I don't know what number it is. Oh, my gosh. Today is a very special day. Today is a day that I have wished for many, many years, but I don't know, just it felt right to ask this time. So I asked. Today we have a special guest. We have Phoenix Rising Star with us today. Many of you know she is a mentor, a friend, a sister. I have worked with her since I moved to Arizona, like 9 years ago, which is a very long time. She has written 2 award-winning books, plus many, many others before this. It's hard to narrow it down into all the things you've written. But she is just amazing. And welcome, Phoenix. Thank you for being here.
Oh, great. I just adore you. Thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, it's been my desire to be here too. I kept looking at this going, wow, they have all these podcasts, but how do I get to be on that?
I love that.
You never know, do you?
Never. Well, manifestation is real.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's having your magic here is super important. And I think that, you just published a book, The Power of the Hollow Bone. You have written a book previously called The Hollow Bone of Healing. And the first one was like a beginner's guide to self-healing. It's kind of that manual to use when you're starting on your journey, or you're really starting to open up to ways of healing that are not traditional, like Western medicine, so to speak, but it's more of spiritual and, physical healing, but using help with the divine or, source energy. But this new book, I love this new book because this new book is geared towards the holistic practitioner. All of us healers out there, energy therapists, energy workers, whatever you want to call us, even, psychics or channelers or readers, anybody who connects with divine to help and assist others in healing. And I also think, Vanessa, she's our spiritual counselor here. So I feel it's a really great book to really enhance and really take your connection to spirit and to the divine or whomever you pray to or connect with in a bigger way. It augments it and it helps become clearer. So what was the inspiration for the book? Let's go into the book and why the first one was amazing, but the second one is just, it's like that plus more. And let's talk about the book and talk about what you wish it to do for those of us. Sorry, guys.
Oh, no, thank you for that. That's a really concise introduction to, I think, everything. So let me back up for just a minute. I will use the term source, spirit, divine interchangeably. So now that we have that understood, I wrote The Hollow Bone of Healing when I had this miraculous experience. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And it was so miraculous. I knew I had to get it out there. And you're right, it's a beginning self-healing manual, and that's what I called it. But I didn't realize it was also a beginning manual for me, right? Because you have this experience and you think, oh, I know it all. Well, no. So I didn't really know very much at all, but I knew enough to put some stuff in a book that could make a difference for people. And I also knew that there was more. I could feel that there was more, but you don't know what you don't know. So I started researching online about the hollow bone because I knew intuitively when I heard angels tell me that's the hollow bone of healing. I knew intuitively what it was, but I wanted to find out more, and there wasn't anything. People kept referencing it, but nobody said, well, this is how you do it. And I knew that I had to then figure out how to replicate a miracle that I had experienced. And what I actually saw, I was working with a client that I had been seeing for a lot. So we were very comfortable with each other. And it was in person, which I don't do any in-person work. Well, other than 15-minute readings at Mind Body Spirit Fairs, that's about all I do in person. But I don't do healing work for the most part in person anymore. And so she came in all over the place. Her focus was on all the big ones: finances, career, relationships, health. I mean, everything was impacted. And, at that point, I called myself an intuitive healer, and I had no idea how to even help her. I just thought, oh man, I don't know what to do with this one. So I just had her lay down, and we did a heart opening meditation, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm going to need some help with this one because I don't know where to start here. And all of a sudden, I see with my inner eyesight Archangel Michael, who looked to be 10 feet tall, coming into the room in all of his magnificence, all of his finery, just glowing. And she's lying down, her eyes are closed, she's completely oblivious. I'm watching him. He leans over, he pulls something out from the back of her neck, and it looks like ticker tape, or like just paper. And he starts running his fingers up and down this, and he turns to me and he says, so here's the deal. All of her stuff that she's presented to you really has its root in her ancestors. And so we're just going to do some ancestral healing here. And once we clean all that up, she's going to be fine. And she's going to think this is the best session ever. And he just finishes cleaning it off. He tucks it back in the back of her neck. He bows to me and he leaves. And I'm just sitting there the whole time with my mouth open going, holy smokes, I've never had this happen in my life. And that's when I said to the angels, what was that? And they said, that's the hollow bone of healing. And I went, oh my goodness, just we shivered. But, so the session was complete, really, at that point. She sits up, she looks at me, she runs out the room going, oh, this was fantastic. Thanks so much. See you next week. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. He's just blown away. So I sat down in meditation because I work a lot with angels, but other guides as well. And I just said, okay, you tell me that's the hollow bone of healing, but that's not how the way I usually work. And they said, no, it hasn't been, but it is now how you're going to work. And I went, well, how do I do it? I didn't even know what I did. So that began this backward story of trying to figure out what are the steps involved to have a miracle happen. Because if I could experience it, then I should be able to replicate it. And if I can replicate it, then I can teach it to others. And that's my whole purpose of writing The Power of the Hollow Bone, is teaching this to others, everything that I learned in the next 3 years after having that experience. And what is interesting to me was how subtle the steps are. There isn't anything like move your hand this way, touch them on their feet this way, make them stand up and clear their end, none of that stuff. It's about things like helping them to open their heart. We started with a heart opening meditation because the hollow bone is based on being in a loving state.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking conditional love where, love me if you do this, kind of thing. It's more the unconditional love that you feel in nature where everything is in harmony. It's the unconditional love you can feel from source energy if you have that experience where it's just, I love you no matter what. I don't care what you do. I still love you. You can learn from this. It's okay. The world will not end. That kind of love.
Right.
And when we can step into that, that's the number one way to start opening the doors to miracles. And
Absolutely.
so that's what we did.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
For listeners, I know, I say this all the time. I say it, we say it on this podcast all the time. And you wonder why I say this. Why? Because, you can do all things through the state of your heart, to enter into your heart and manifest and work through your heart. That if you live a life through your heart, it's going to be in alignment with you, in alignment with what you want to do in the world, and it's going to feel better. And this is where it came from. So if you're ever wondering where all the things that I talk about, it's like this is where it came from. Because it's not only the books, but in as Phoenix said, in teaching it and stuff, she teaches it. She has an entire team that teaches it, that shares it, that teaches, that helps facilitate people like opening their heart. And that's that's the first step, is just to learn how to open your heart to spirit and to whomever you connect with, and in a way that I think what's important, and what something has come up frequently lately about opening our heart and connecting to spirit or other beings. It's when we're in the state of love that prevents us from connecting with anything that's of a lower vibration. Love being that vibration, because I know some people, they're like, oh, I don't want to do that work because I'm afraid like something bad will come in or whatever. And one of the things that, I always say, the frequency of love is so high that whatever you connect to, if you have love in your energy field and you're in a state of love, you cannot connect with something that's any lower vibration than that state.
Right.
And so, yeah. So anyways, I want to say that. And fun fact. So today, our reading we did today, our surrender card for today was surrender to miracles. Yeah. So you were just, I was like,
I mean, it's so aligned. Now, it's funny because we obviously did the reading before, and I was kind of like, okay, I mean, this is really good. And then it like did not connect at all until you started talking, Phoenix, where I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, we literally just talked about having to let go and having to, like move things so that the miracle can come in, and now you're explaining literally a story about how to do that. Which is fantastic.
You can't make this stuff up, right?
No. And that's so beautiful, right? Like I love, like there's nothing that talk about that love energy. When you realize alignment like this, I mean, I'm warm all over. I'm giddy. I'm like, man, that's amazing. I love how this works.
Exactly. It gives you goosebumps all the time.
Yeah. And I love, I being an intuitive counselor myself, like I loved hearing the story because I kind of was able to put myself in that place of being like, I don't know what to do, because I do it all the time. You sit down sometimes and you're like, whoa, we're going to do some work. Right. And you don't know what's going to happen. And you describing your journey of, I just let it happen. You know what I mean? That takes a tremendous amount of like random trust, I think. You know what I mean? To just let that play out.
Yes. That is one of the things that I learned. It's about allowing source or the divine or spirit to come in and do the work, not to think that we are doing any of it. Our role is to hold a field of love so the divine can come in. That's our role. That's all our role is. And the more we can embrace that, the faster you're going to see transformational results. And that's probably the hardest thing for healers to do, because we love to learn. We take all kinds of classes. This is in our genealogy, right? We take everything we can because we just want to know more. Yes. And so then what do the classes teach us? Here's what you do. Here's what you do with your hands. Here's what you tell them. And it's like, it has nothing to do with that. And that can be very disappointing to people who have a lot of tools in your toolbox. Now, let me put in a caveat here. it's not that you have to throw away all of your tools. Your
Yeah.
tools are very valid, and you can be the hollow bone and incorporate that into your existing practice. You do not have to choose between them.
Yes.
But here's what I discovered. When I started doing the hollow bone with other things I was doing, pretty soon my clients were saying to me, just do that other, bone thing. Don't worry about anything else. Because they were seeing faster and better results with it. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
you give them what they ask for.
100%. I mean, Grace has been on this journey with me, with my own counseling, and that's literally how it had to be, right? Because
Yeah.
you're trying to use your brain, and you're trying to use your education, and you're trying to use all the things that, like, while I was licensed, like what the board wants me to do so I don't get in trouble, and all of that.
Yes.
Super ineffective. Like, it just was not effective. I didn't feel good. Like, the work wasn't being
Yeah.
done, and it had to be a total surrender. And I still
Yeah.
have to do it, where sometimes my brain comes in and says, well, what are you going to talk about today? And I have to be like, we'll find out. Like, just sit down. We'll find out. Right. And it feels,
Yes.
like you said, like it's so anti what we are taught that it's really hard to, like, deprogram. Right. And Grace and I, we talk about
Yes.
this all the time.
Absolutely. And Grace, you mentioned how being in your heart and love is one of your greatest protection devices, against lower energies. But there's another protection device that I discovered that also works hand in hand with that power of love and really seals the deal. And that's, when I was working with my client and I sat back and I went, I don't know what I'm doing. I also said, I'm really going to need some big guns on this one because I have no clue where to start. And for me, the big guns meant whoever's for the highest and best to come in.
Yeah.
Now, when I start using that intention, you are going to be working, you, the clients, are working with whoever's for your highest and best. And that's all that can come in. This is what the angel said to me. Nobody else can come in. It's a universal law in our universe. And when you state that, nobody else can come in. And they all recognize that. It's our ultimate safety net to ask for our highest and best. And when you get a helper who's of your highest and best, what kind of results do you get? Only those for your highest and best. I mean, it's like, wow, how does it get better than this?
I love that.
Absolutely.
Right? But then that also means that we don't always recognize it, because sometimes we think that our results should be a certain thing or a certain way. And that's not what happens at all, right? So like I was working with a client who was she was on the phone with me, and she was really frustrated because she had all these health problems and going to the doctors, and doctors weren't finding anything. They just were pushing more meds. And she was like really frustrated. And finally I said, do you want a session? And she said, yes, I do. And the way that we work is that I just send it to her, and then we get on the phone later and talk about it, because that way she can relax a little bit more deeply. And so when we got on the phone, she goes, well, you're going to be disappointed. And I said, no, I'm not going to be disappointed. This is your session. And she said, yeah, but she said, but I'm not better. And I said, but what are you? And she said, I think I need to sit down with my doctors and talk about my medication, because I think they've given me too much. I think it's all fighting and it's not helping me. And I knew in that instant that she had truly gotten the highest and best. It wasn't the result she wanted, but now she was empowered to work with any health representative. She was empowering herself to stand up for herself and not put them into an automatic box of being the only authority. She was saying, no, there's a problem here and we are going to solve it. That is going to serve her for the rest of her life, because if her symptoms had all disappeared, what would she have learned from it? Probably nothing. Oh, I'll go have a session. That'll make me feel better. Well, that's not empowering. That's not her highest and best.
No. And that's the brilliance of this, right?
Yes.
When is because, this and here's, we always talk about this on the podcast. We talk about the truth of healing, the truth of the real actual stepping into the space of working with an energy practitioner, what to expect, the things of like, understand is that what is coming through is the information you need to achieve what it is you're asking for.
Yes.
And it may not be that, it's not up to me to heal that moment, or channel the energy to heal it. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's about understanding what has gotten in the way of you achieving that yourself, so that you're not at the mercy of what you're doing. Because when you have to keep going back because you just want the healing, it's disempowering, it's creating attachment. You're not believing in yourself, you're not believing in your ability to take care of yourself. They're giving their power away to something.
Yes.
Versus having it within their heart and being in their heart and understanding that.
Yes, exactly. Isn't it wonderful how we're so aligned?
I know. Yeah. I feel like we're all just like, yeah, like, kind of like over and over again. Yeah. Right. Because like we've talked so much, and I've talked so much, and Grace talked so much, and I'm hearing you saying the same kind of things, is that like the container is the thing. Like the work that we've done as healers is to learn how to create containers, right? Like and maintain the containers, right? And so that's our thing, right? Like that's the thing that I had to do in order to create space for it. But then the rest, I have nothing. Like I may be a leader, but I'm not the one doing the work, right? Like I may be digging, but I'm not the one who unearths the treasure, right? Like we just dig together. And I think that's like the thing that like Grace was saying, is so difficult sometimes to remind people, like you came here and all I gave you was the container. You are doing the work, right? And so that means that it's fine if you come here because it's just easier, right? It's easier to come into my container, right? Like, and that can be your attachment for a while, but just having that empowerment of saying, Vanessa didn't do this, or Grace didn't do this, or Phoenix didn't do this for me. They just created a really safe space for me to do it. And it might be the only safe space I have, but I have it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
So it's interesting because what else happens with the detaching from, that outcome is, I got this message a couple of times to really learn it. Don't push your own agenda.
Yeah.
Right. Oh boy. So I really learned this one the hard way. But how else do we learn, right? So I was on the phone with a client who was in another state. So it wasn't somebody I could just go visit, and she was pretty suicidal. And I know that she'd attempted it before, so I was taking her pretty seriously. And she even had a plan, and we were talking and talking and talking, and it finally got her to agree that she would not take any action for 24 hours and that she would call me the next day, and that she would receive a session from me in the meantime. Okay, well, that was the best I felt like I could do, and I felt like I left her in a good place. And so for me, sometimes when I'm pacing or walking, that's when I can really focus my energy better. So I went for a walk to give her a session. And I'm walking, and the whole time I'm walking, I'm saying, please don't let her commit suicide. Please don't let her commit suicide. Please don't let her commit suicide. And nothing happened. No energy was flowing. Nothing was coming through. It was just still. So finally I stopped. I literally stopped walking, and I just stopped what I was doing. I said, what's going on? And they said, you're pushing your own agenda. And I went, oh. I understood intuitively what it meant, but I was far enough away from home that I thought, that part I'll deal with when I get home. So let me just get out of the way right now. And as soon as I said, let me get out of the way, all the energy started flowing. I could feel it too. I couldn't tell you what it was. I don't know what happened. I could just feel energy flowing, and it continued to flow for another 30 minutes, and then it stopped, and you just go, okay, something happened. I don't know what it was. So when I went home, I sat down in meditation, and I said, okay, so what did I do wrong? And they said, no, it's not that you did anything wrong, because you had really good intentions. It's just that if you are being the hollow bone, you can't have an objective of what you want to have happen.
Mm.
And we are not asking anyone to suffer more if they have suffered enough. We have this idea that suicide is not necessarily a bad thing because we don't believe people need to suffer.
Yeah.
And so if that's what she needed, then that's what she would have gotten, and she would have achieved that. But we happened to think that there was something for her highest and best, and we wanted to help her experience that. Okay, I get it. Get out of the way. Don't push your own agenda. That was huge for me.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
That's hard. I mean, hearing that was
Yeah.
very was triggering for me, like in a good and
Yeah.
and like a scary way because of what I do and being, when I
Right.
my first internship was at an IOP with the people coming straight out of the hospital for suicide attempts, right? Like, and here I am, this
Wow.
young, like still in college, like, oh, okay, so these people's lives are in my hands. Sounds good.
Oh
I don't know what I'm
gosh.
doing, right? And
Okay.
yeah, having to detach from that outcome. I mean, I really do feel like that now looking back, that was the crash
Mhm.
course. And I needed to learn that
Yep.
right away that like it is
Yep.
not my job to make people stay when they don't want to stay. Right. And that was
That's right.
before all the spirituality part of it, but that was like something I had to be grounded in because I was never going to survive myself if I took
Yeah.
responsibility for people's lives, and
No,
it's
that's
so, I
right.
mean, it's still hard sometimes to be able to say, there's nothing it's not
Yeah.
my thing to do,
Right.
whatever's the best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm,
And it's
Yeah.
also because when we're pushing that agenda, we're pushing what we think is right for them. And
yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
know because we don't know what they're
Yeah.
experiencing in their life and what is creating this desire in any case, not just in the idea of suicidal ideation. It's the idea of, in any spot in someone's life, when we think we know what will heal them, we have entered into the space of our mind and not in our heart.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we have entered into the idea that we understand what they need. And we do not,
Yeah.
because we are only seeing a snippet of their life. We're not
Yep.
seeing from birth and all that they've experienced and all the woundings or the belief systems or everything else that's impacting them. We're only seeing this tiny sliver of a moment. And to think that we know what to do or what needs to be done is a little egotistical.
Yeah. Well, and it's pretty funny because like in my own life, do I know what to do?
Yeah, right.
Right? I can be arrogant enough to sit down with somebody and know what they need to do. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. It just really helps you to rethink everything, right?
Yeah.
All these subtle nuances. And another thing too that I learned from the angels and guides is the role of permission. Now, this varies according to therapies and modalities. Some will say, hey, it's all going to the higher self, let the higher self decide. Others will say, no, you must have permission all the time. And I was assuming because we're asking for the highest and best, we wouldn't need permission. But oh no, that was made very clear to me that always never assume that somebody needs healing because you think they need healing, right? It's again pushing your own agenda because we don't know what that highest and best is. And it's interesting because at first I thought, well, that must mean that, the person's higher self would be the one making that decision then. But no, it really isn't. The ultimate decision for permission comes from source energy. And I learned that the hard way again. I was working with a client on the phone and someone I've worked with before, but this was more of a casual conversation. And she was just in a really stuck place, but she didn't really want a session. She said, do you do astrology? And I'm like, no, no, I don't really think that's what you need, but whatever. And she's like, no, I don't know. You know how it is when we just are in circles, right? We all go there and sometimes we just have to stay there for a while. And so we get off the phone and I thought, well, I've worked with her before. I have permission to work with her. Maybe I'll just offer her a quick session and maybe it'll help her to get unstuck. It's nothing happens. When I've learned that when you don't feel anything happening, it's because nothing's happening. So I stopped and I said, "What's going on?" And I heard very clearly, "We are not giving you permission at this time. Yes, you have worked with her before. Yes, you have had permission before, but we are not giving you permission because she's in a very stuck place, but she needs to be in a stuck place because she's not going to get to where she needs to go next without being stuck and working through it. If you were to clear that stuckness, what would she learn? And it would probably postpone her next step. And she doesn't need that right now. This is what she needs, is to be stuck. Perfect.
Yeah. Grace and I have talked about permission like a lot of times. And the way that you just described it is like, and what you had said, about the differences in permission, it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense, right? Because it's sometimes situational, sometimes it's career-ish, whatever. Like, but what you just described is kind of like that additional thing, right? Like, so what they come here for is what they came here for, right? And being able to sit down, like when somebody comes and sits down, and I might have my little notes of what we talked about last time, and this is what we're going to talk about this time, right? And then I see that they are not showing up in that energy, right? Like I'm like, and the notes go out the window, and we're like, what are you here for? And if you complain about something for an entire hour, that's what you were here to do, right? Like, and being able to let go of that and say, okay, I'm not going to do anything further because that's not what you came here for, right? Like it's different than saying, well, you came here for this, and so I'm just going to shove it down your throat. Right? Like, basically, like, because that's what I do. Right. And I feel like that's that permission thing of saying, like, I have different modalities and I'm not going to push on you what I think I came here to do without permission. I'm going to let you lead and show me what I have permission to do and just leave it there. And that, I think, like, we have to transcend our ego in order to do that. Because for me, I know that it's so hard. Like, people are paying you money and all they're going to do is sit here for an hour and complain, right? Like, you better do something, right? And so, you know what I mean? It feels very like, wow. But hearing that, like, makes so much sense, right? Like, to say, okay, I don't have to give you what the normal thing is that I gave you. I might have already given it to you. I might have already given you the container. I might have already given you as much energy as you can handle today. And that's fine. I don't have to worry about what I need to do next.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that too, Vanessa, is that here's another thing. It's not just about being in that heartfelt state for a client or for an hour or for 6 hours of your work. It's about being there all the time. And when you step into that, people around you feel it and they react to it. And now some, are so badly hurt that they may reject it and walk away, but that's only like maybe 1-2%. The rest of them stay and flourish within it. And so that's all you have to do.
Yeah. Talking about permission, whenever I ask, and I ask clients, even like you said, that I've already worked with, the act of asking is sometimes all that they ever needed. When they feel they have choice, when they feel that they have control of something, meaning, because especially if they're in a space where things are happening to them by the hand of another person or by situational or environmental, and they don't have really much control over what is happening, if you sometimes giving them that choice and having them be able to say yes or no gives them the ability to be like, I've had people just break down and cry and just asking, and I'm like, oh boy. And it's just kind of like, okay, it's also the idea of giving them a possibility of when they say yes and they're asking for permission from an energy worker standpoint, the door's open, right? Because there have been moments where in not asking, like, I'm not reading anything and nothing's coming through. And so it's like, it's that idea that they're really open to what is coming and they're they're saying I actively receive, right? Because you
Mhm.
can give, but if somebody's not in that state of receiving because they haven't given permission, it's like kind of like throwing a whole bunch of things against a wall and like nothing's going through.
Yeah, that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which isn't
Really
good for
good
anybody.
point. Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my. So, so in the power of the hollow bone, I talk about these things, and these are the nuances of getting into a deeper state with it, so that you can start seeing faster and better results with your clients. And I talk about how you can do this as a standalone and it's fine. People will be very happy with it. And you
Mhm.
can add it on to what you're already doing and people will be very happy with it. So it's again not the either or. There's ways to be that hollow bone, but no matter what, when you intend to step into it from that heartfelt state, you're going to see change rapidly and it's going to be phenomenal. And this is the beginning of creating miracles.
Yeah, it sounds, I mean, it's very, I mean, obviously, for knowing Grace, and she, I mean, she talks about it all the time. You're here today, but you're here a lot.
Oh, my ears are burning all the time.
Yeah, you're here a lot. But we talk about that. But what I wanted to ask you, and it did, I don't prepare. I mean, this is just how I am, right? Like,
Good.
and I think it's because of what we were just talking about. Is like I feel like it becomes agenda-y, and I don't like it. Like it just is against my free spirit
Yeah.
self. And also it feels like I'm just going to block spirit out because I've decided that this is what I need to ask about. But this just came
Yeah.
in when you were talking about it, because I feel like you know, Grace and I talk about this a lot. I had to do it when, like creating my own space. We're all kind of doing the same thing, right? Like we talk about doing
Mhm.
the same thing, but explain, I guess, maybe to the audience and probably me, like what the difference is in the practitioner in your mind about,
Mhm.
if we're all doing, kind of the same work, but it's a different
Mhm.
practitioner energy. Like, I think maybe some people might want to know about that, because I know that in my own space, it's been that way of having to learn. People are coming,
Mhm.
you could be saying the same thing that 10 other people are saying. There's something different about you that will attract the people that can hear it from you or feel it from you. So let's like, I think in the psychology field, it's a little bit like different, obviously, but if you could kind of maybe explain that from like the different practitioner point of view.
Yeah, so I have kind of a generic way of just introducing the hollow bone to people. Like if say you're a Reiki practitioner and you love Reiki and your clients love Reiki, but now you want to add in that hollow bone element. So the very first thing you're going to do 15 minutes before that client walks in is you're going to go into your heart and you're really going to ask to be the highest and best hollow bone for that client. And maybe you already have that intention set for your entire day anyway,
Mhm,
but this asking it on behalf of that client will really help bring in the energy of thinking with your heart and not with your head, right? And
mhm,
so when that client walks in, you are seeing them with the eyes of love,
mhm,
right? So they're feeling it, they're seeing it, they know that this is going to work for them because love heals all things and love manifests all
mhm,
things, and people intuitively know that. So when you sit down with them, the first question we ask is, how would you like your life to be different? Not to focus on the negative and all that's wrong, but how do you want it to be different? How do you want it to look? How do you want it to feel? What parts of it are you asking to shift here, and how would that look like to you? How would you know that? And then we always say, well, we will focus on that. However, we do allow for whatever's for your highest and best, because we are working with your highest and best helpers. And many times they'll bring in some things that maybe you're not expecting.
mhm,
And that's okay, because maybe there's a bigger agenda there. So we'll discuss it afterwards, just so you're real clear about that.
mhm,
And then and then just kind of explaining how you're going to be doing the Reiki and the hollow bone. Some people will just automatically stay in that hollow bone state as they like to go through the motions with their hands. Other people will reserve the last 10 minutes of the session to only be that hollow bone, where maybe that's the time that they can step deeper because they're not distracted by doing the hand positions or things like that. And they step in deeper into being that hollow bone, and they receive maybe messages or the client is receiving the healing through the transmission that's coming through that practitioner. And it's of a different kind. It's the whole feeling is different when it comes through because you are not generating it. You're the conduit for it. So I think part of what practitioners, when they're first starting to learn about the hollow bone, don't understand it isn't. I mean, you are the conduit. So what is coming through you, it really doesn't even have your flavor. It is source energy coming through you. And that is its own unique flavor, if that makes sense. And that also helps us to detach and get out of our own way and just allow it to be what it is.
Okay.
And then at the end,
yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. And
then at the end, then, I find that clients go so deeply, especially if you're adding in the hollow bone anywhere, they go so deeply into it that when they're complete with the session, they don't really know what just happened. So I find it very helpful to kind of re-articulate anything that I was seeing, sensing, feeling, letting them know during the session that, that I was aware of. And sometimes I'm not aware of things because it's not for me to know. It's really happening to them. And so I might get them engaged in talking about what did you see, hear, sense, feel, know. And then together we kind of interpret it so that it makes total sense to the client that healing did happen. Messages were there for you. You are walking away changed, and this is how. Because I find that without doing that, they go away happy, but they don't have a clue what happened. And that doesn't really help them in the long run. And it doesn't help them to be repeat clients of you either because they don't know what happened. So if you can help them, understand it, then they want to come back. They want more. Because also the other thing that happens as a practitioner is you'll be able to see, okay, you just had remarkable healing, for instance, around abundance. And we really worked on your ancestral beliefs around that weren't even yours, but they were affecting you. And as you go through the next couple of weeks, you may find that you're lacking abundance in other aspects of your life that you didn't equate with that, like maybe relationships, or maybe there's an aspect of health. And so next time you come in, we'll work on those things if that feels right to you. And so now you're empowering them because they have a plan and they know that you've got their back and they know that you are the person to get them to see the results because you're not because you're doing the work, but because it's coming through you. So with all of that, I don't know if that helped explain what you were asking about.
Yeah, it did. And I think that there's like the 3D part of it, which I feel like I've discovered is like there's some other connection, right? Like the same way that like every client who comes to me isn't going to be able to work with me, right? Like and I've definitely noticed that throughout time is because we spend a lot of time talking, right? Like that. So I mean, whether it's the volume of my voice or the vibration of my voice or my energy or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's a 3D connection that I feel like that has to be there in order for the rest of it to come through. And I think that that to me was probably the most major thing that I had to understand about my own work is being able to say, and Grace and I were talking about this in the pregame of like, it can't be everybody because other people that do what I do are going to serve certain people better just because of the 3D connection. Not, you know what I mean? Because source is source, right? But they have to have that because we are humans in a meat suit. We have to have that connectivity in order to allow for the opening, right? And like that, I think a lot of like clients needed to hear that from me because of the
Mm,
expectation that they have, right? They'll come
mm,
in and they'll be like, "Well, I mean, this is the work you do, right?" And it's like, "Yeah, but if we don't have a connection, it's gonna be really
mhm,
hard to do the work because you're gonna get distracted by the lack of 3D connection." And I can't
mhm,
say that to everybody because not everybody
mhm.
can want a
Right,
3D,
right.
like, the conversation, but I feel like that matters in our 3D, at least in
Mhm,
it for me in my practice. I mean,
mhm,
obviously, like, what you were talking about with, like, Reiki, I was thinking about, like, people that I know that do Reiki, and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it's same but different." You know what I mean? Because
mhm,
people are
mhm,
going there for
mhm,
different reasons, and they're
mhm,
connecting to that person for a different reason. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's
mhm.
all, like, very magical and aligned, you know?
Oh, yeah. And it all happens because of that feeling of love.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm,
think too is that one of the things I explain a lot to some people is that where we are at in our journey and what we have learned and what we have experienced in our life and what we've healed and what we've opened up to spirit to heal and the places we have been creates a special type of vibration.
Mhm.
And the
mhm,
people that are experiencing similar things that maybe I've experienced and that I've worked through or that I've raised the vibration of, it always happens. It's not a
yeah,
coincidence, but it always happens where I will have had a breakthrough or I will have had spirit come in and assist me with energy and my vibration raises because I have like healed something or worked through it or experienced it. And and then people show up that have just
mhm,
had that experience or it needs
yeah,
the energy that I have just opened to and evolved to. And that's why,
mhm.
when I went to Sedona, when I first moved there, the guy was like, "Oh, there's enough healers in Sedona." I'm like, "There's always room for one more." I'm like,
Yes,
because
yes.
there's not every healer is going to fit everybody. Whenever
Right.
and I say this all the time when people like want to schedule or want to meet me or whatever, I always give them permission. If you don't feel right and you don't feel like this is a place, a safe space for, or just energetically it feels off, you have
Mhm,
all the permission to say, this doesn't feel right. And it is my duty as a practitioner and as connected to source to say, okay, then can I
mhm,
recommend somebody?
mhm.
I can recommend some people or I can, help them or find the person that connects with them because it's not going to work. If the vibrations
Right,
don't match, it's not going to
right.
work. It's
Mhm,
it, if the frequencies aren't there, it's going to be like rough sandpaper against each other. It's
mhm,
not going to
mhm.
help and it's not going to work.
Well, and I think you're so right, both of you. And I'm sitting here thinking it's different from being a physician where they see everybody who walks in the door and it doesn't matter if you don't like them.
Yeah.
They're going to see you,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's not the same kind of energy, right? What
Yeah.
we're putting out there and from both of you, it's a heartfelt connection and you either feel it or you don't.
Right.
I mean, you
Right.
can't fake it. So you might as well be honest about it and, stop wasting everybody's time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I fired physicians because their vibe was off. So
Yeah. Well, and
Yes,
a lot of
exactly.
times people come to me because 'cause they're like, "Listen, I've been doing," and they're, like, giving me the speech before we've even sat, like, really gotten into anything. "I have been to therapy before, and it was awful." And I'm like, "Okay." Like,
Yeah.
"But you're in my space now, and it's very different because it's gonna be
Yep.
different anyway." But, like,
Yep.
that, like, that I know because I was once that therapist who was working within a system and having to be, not heart-centered because I had to be corporate-centered or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
Ooh,
there's
yeah.
yeah, it's, like, yucky. Even talking about that is just, like,
Oh,
I don't like to revisit that
yeah.
energy, but I know I was there, and I know and I understand the difference even in myself, but I see the
Yeah.
difference in the work that I do, being,
Yeah.
very, very different. And, yeah, so there's a lot, and I agree, we have to talk about it more. I talk about it as much as
Yeah.
I can because I feel like, even for me, like, I needed to hear that. I didn't hear it very
Mhm.
often, but I needed to hear that when I was that person, that you don't have to do
Yeah.
it this way, that you can do it a
Yeah.
different way so that you can connect from your heart to your clients and not connect from what the board's gonna say or how you're gonna lose your
Right.
license or how, all of that kind of stuff
Yeah.
because you can't do great work that way. You just can't.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Wow.
Yeah.
yeah. The one thing
Ah,
I will say I love about the hollow bone is when you're talking about having other modalities or other ways of doing things, is that
mhm,
this is not an exclusatory thing, right? It's if
right,
anything,
right,
it makes everything inclusive, because there have
right.
been many times I've been in session with someone and they're like, "Oh, do some Reiki symbols on her knee," or, use this acupressure point from IET, or,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
an angel comes in that's related to something. It just they show up because they're like, "Oh, you know this and they need this, so this is what you need to do." It's
Yeah.
almost like the mothership.
Yes, yes. I love it.
So it's and that's I just I can't say it enough. And maybe because I've been through it and I've been doing it for I don't know how many years now. It's got to be close 7 or
Yeah.
8. And you
Yeah.
know, it's it, it's probably the one thing and one way of being to that has become more of a lifestyle versus like a healing modality.
Yeah.
Because whenever I'm in my head or the fear is happening or I'm in that space, whether I'm being a practitioner in that moment or just myself, it's
Mhm.
I always I try to remember it, go back to your heart, go back to your heart, go back to your heart.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's like become this kind of mantra of if I'm in fear, I just want to invite the love in from spirit, even if it's just that and not connecting. Because when you're in the thick of it,
Right.
it's hard to connect.
Yep.
But
Yep.
even if you just intend, like just inviting it in, just the
Mhm.
invitation of it alone is
Mhm.
enough to kind of take the edge off all that's happening, to give you a little bit of bandwidth to help cope or to help understand what's happening, to be self-supportive. I mean, it's one of the cornerstones, foundations of all of my healing, in a way that it's helped me not only personally but professionally in a way that I don't
Mhm.
know that anything ever could, right?
Yeah. Yep. I understand completely.
And I
And
think
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I think too, it's that idea of just you don't have to make it complicated. It's not complicated. And I
No, it's not.
think that's kind of what people they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
All I have to do is this? That's
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it? And so people get confused because I'm not, you're not showing
Mhm.
them, or they're not expected to do like massive hand movements and cartwheels and whatever else.
Yeah.
But it's, I sit if I'm in person, I sit at the head of the person, and sometimes they need tactile contact, so I put my hands on their
Yeah.
shoulder, and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And I've had more results that way than any Reiki session or IET session I've ever done.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's a personal, and I think it's just the hollow bone itself augments not only our practitioners, but I feel that if you're on any type of healing journey, and if you're in that
Mhm.
state where you're wanting to learn and heal and open up and become a hollow bone for yourself first, it'll take you into places and give you the ability to go into places that in healing spaces that you never thought you would, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
I we talk about miracles and the thought of miracles and creating miracles. I don't know that if I hadn't had the hollow bone, I ever would think that I they exist in my life. And
Right.
it's not just the idea of being open and a channel in the hollow bone, it's also about having it heals our mind in a way that is like we're looking for the miracles because we expect them,
Mhm.
that we
Mhm.
expect them to come, and they may not come. It's expectations without expectation, right? You expect them to be there,
Mhm.
but without you don't have the idea of what it should look like. It's
Right.
allowing them to exist in our lives in the purest way, and in the way spirit's like, no, this is what you need, right? And it gives you the ability to know, even amidst the hard things, that things will be okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
I think it's the one, anybody who struggles with mental health, and y'all know, y'all, all the angels know I've had quite the journey from the west to the east coast, and how very traumatic it was, and how I'm still struggling with it. And
Yeah.
but I think because I have the hollow bone, because I have it as a tool in my toolbox, because it is my life, because I embody it in a very big
Yeah.
way, um,
Yeah.
it is what has saved me from going to a point where I am on that no return in a mental way and an emotional way. Like it has helped me keep one like foot firmly on the ground and kind of in that space of being able to see, okay, this is a moment, we're having in a moment, and giving me that space to help me find a way to work through it, to heal it, to support myself. And I don't know if I didn't have that ability or have that understanding of the hollow bone that I would have made it this far. Like I'd have been in a psychiatrist's office asking for meds, asking for everything, which is not wrong, listeners. It is not wrong to have meds if that's what you need. But it's just given me that little extra bandwidth to go seek the help that I need and to understand what it is I need. So yeah, it's
and I appreciate what you're saying. It brings clarity in a way that's more big picture.
Yeah.
You know, and especially when you choose to live this way. And truly, this is what I invite everybody to do. It isn't something you turn on and turn off for clients. It is a way of living. I wake up in the morning and I ask to be the highest and best hollow bone for the entire day. I ask to be, whatever I need to be. And then I ask, okay, just show me what I'm supposed to do today, because I always have 1,000 things on my list, but I can't get 1,000 things done. So show me which ones need to be done today. And it's smooth and it's effortless. And I feel complete when those things are done. And I'm not stressed about the other things. It completely changes your outlook. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that was important to bring up, right? Because I think sometimes people don't quite understand what the hell we're talking about, right? Like,
right?
Oh, okay, so you're gonna come in and like channel some stuff, and it's gonna feel good. Like, what are you talking about?
Yes, exactly.
Right? And so, like, explaining more that, like, here's practically what happens in the day, right? For me, because of it, and I do, like like I had said before, like, the hollow bone is in a lot of our podcasts in a lot of practical ways too, but that's what Grace explains, like it's not just something that you go to learn to do so you can do for somebody else, right? Like it's something that you go to learn because, oh my gosh, like the expansiveness that it creates just from learning about it in your own life, right? Like it makes it worth it. And then in addition, all of these like kind of like little side quests that you can go on if you choose to, in terms of like assisting others or whatever, because not everybody is in a space where they want to be a healer. And I think that that's like hard for me to understand sometimes because I just think everybody wants to be. But then you sit down with people and I'm like, I don't want to do what you do. I want to sit at a desk and I want to work with numbers and I do not want to do any of that. Right. But that doesn't mean that this kind of work can't be helpful for them to experience, right? Like you don't have to be necessarily want to take it and go use it somewhere. It's like yourself that can use it.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to step into the hollow bone when a website crashes on me and I'm like, okay, Spirit, I know you don't do technology, but help me out here.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness.
Make things line up for me and then I'll go investigate and I'll find an article and there's the answer. Thank you, Spirit.
Exactly. Quick, easy, effortless.
Yeah. And I love, you're right, Vanessa, because I mean, some people, this is not what their jam is, but it's definitely augments our life. And even if it's, I think too, is that it also helps people give permission to live what is in their heart. And it helps them connect to it to a way that helps them want to change their life or shift it or make it be that's more in alignment, which is more fulfilling. And I have a 9-to-5 job. We all know that. And it's emotionally, it's my security blanket and that's fine. And it's okay. I bring the hollow bone to work every day. I don't need to exclude it just because I'm working with some tech gurus. No, I can just be like, yeah, it's there. It's present. Because if I react from it, then everything that comes out of me, whether it's out of my fingers on the keyboard or out of my mouth or out of my space or my energy, is going to be for my highest good, first of all, because I've asked for it, but for the highest good of everybody. And And
Yeah.
sometimes it's the courage I need to speak my truth, right?
Yes.
It's the hardest thing in work to speak your truth because we're not taught to. We're taught to succumb and worry about our foundations and the stress of it. And I've been there, but when we can use our heart, the hollow bone, it helps us talk and speak in a way that is not from our trauma or from our fear, but from our heart, and really
Mm.
inviting the solutions in whatever way that is.
Yep. Yep. You nailed it.
Yeah.
It's very important because I think that's what I mean. Everybody's looking for it. They just don't know what they're looking for, right? And
Yep.
and giving permission to be able to say you're allowed to dip in there, and you don't
Yeah.
have to do anything, right? Like you
No.
don't have to take action. Like you were saying
Yeah.
earlier, Phoenix. It's not always about taking the action. It's about
Right.
feeling, because sometimes it just happens, right? Like, and I think that it's so hard to explain, but sometimes when people come into my space and we talk about something, it then is gone, and
Yeah.
action was literally just bringing it to the forefront, right? Bringing it into consciousness, and then it ended,
Right.
because that was the end of its journey. And so I think that, like, a lot of times, we're trying to get into action space and we're trying to be like, oh, what can this do for my life? And, and it's kind of like, yeah, man, I mean, some of it is just being there, and then
Mhm.
it will unfold sometimes without drastic action, because you're embodying a different vibration or a different version of you, and then you'll just act the same way that we act right now, from like instinct, right? So it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like an action, it feels like living.
Right.
And
Yes.
you create your life literally just from living. And it sounds so weird to say, right? Like, his people are listening are like, no, it sounds like it's going to be hard. Like, I'm going to have to do some hard things.
Yeah. Right.
But
Right.
it doesn't feel hard. And that's like the thing
No.
about it, is that, like, the hard things come in when we're having to clear them, but the creation of life gets, you just are existing, and you're doing things, and you're thinking things, and you're, like, it's very inspired, and it feels free and loose. And it comes from this kind of connectivity to your heart to be able to do that, because when we're doing it from other spaces, that's when we feel resistance, I feel.
Yes. Yes. And that's when everything gets hard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and adding
Mhm.
the idea of the attraction factor and the manifestation when it comes to the hollow bone, it's when you're in your heart and you're wanting to manifest something and you know that this is what you want to manifest, when you're in your heart and you can be in the hollow bone, you're
Oof.
more likely to be able to see and hear, like going to a shop that you've never been to because you just got this hit that you wanted to go and you needed to go. What? They're looking for readers? Oh my God, that's the perfect thing I was looking for, right? It's it gets you closer to the things that will manifest the things that you're wanting to, and
Mhm.
and help you be in your heart and not be in the fear of, because we manifest because we're in fear and panic, right? And
Mhm.
in some cases, not all cases,
Yeah.
but some cases. And
Yeah.
and so when we're in the hollow bone, we can see, is this really what I want to manifest? And the heart usually, or spirit or the divine, can help us and be like, yeah, maybe kinda, but not the way you think you want to manifest.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
isn't, trust me. It's
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
want to manifest the big house, but you
Yeah.
need to pay taxes on that house. You need to do repairs on that house. Are you ready to do that?
You
No, I'm
need to clean that house,
yeah.
which changed my my idea.
So it just, like you said, it brings clarity, but it also brings the energy of it closer, because when we're in our heart, that is the connection to our manifestations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So your books, Phoenix, they
Yep.
can find them on Amazon. I'm
Yep.
and
Barnes and Noble too.
yes. And where
Uh-huh.
else? Anywhere else?
Um,
Barnes and Noble's, Amazon.
um, those are the two I can think of offhand. There may be a few other subtleties, like sometimes places like Target will pick up a whole batch of stuff, but that's not the norm usually.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say
Yeah.
Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Everybody has Amazon Prime. So go get it, guys.
Yeah.
Amazon. Um, And so, if someone wants to experience it or dip their toe in, is what could they do?
Oh, well, I would say go to the website, hollowbonejourney.com, and go to Receive a Healing and look at our practitioner page. We've got wonderful practitioners who are just there to serve. And I really feel that they've been wonderful hollow bones. That's why they're practitioners. And you can read about them, kind of sense in with your heart, see who aligns with you. And every one of them has, like, you can schedule an appointment either by email, or sometimes they have a scheduler on there. So you could definitely experience what it's like that way. If you weren't sure you wanted to invest in a healing session, or maybe you didn't even know what you were working on, we also have something called the Hollow Bone Circle, which is offered free monthly. And that's usually the second Saturday of the month, but check the calendar just to make sure. And it's offered through all of our instructors as well as myself throughout the year. And what we're doing is we're taking different topics and using the Hollow Bone of Healing meditations, because you get free guided meditations in both books. And so we're using those meditations and just showing you how you can easily apply these meditations to any topic, which helps you to begin to understand how you can really live this work. And so I think the next one we have coming up is here in September. It's on the 14th. And that's about rewriting your story. So that will be very good for many people to understand where did our stories come from? What does it look like? How does it get in our way? And how do we rewrite them? And, literally in an hour, you receive like a 15, 20 minutes of education and 20 minutes of meditation to help you align with whatever the healing is that's coming through. And then we always do a little integration and sharing afterwards. And you don't have to be a part of that if you don't choose to, but it really does help because it gives you more insights and awarenesses. It helps you also to listen to other people sharing, because it may trigger some things that you'd forgotten had happened during your meditation, and you wanted to make sure you get that written down, or they understand what that means for you. So the sharing can help, but sometimes we're in such a deep place we don't want to share. It's just like, no, I want to go finish my own integration, and that's fine. You can do either one, but those are free. So that's a great way to just do generic stuff. Let's see here. Oh,
What
I've
if you're
got
a
the meditations
practitioner?
in the book.
Sorry.
Yep. If you are a practitioner already, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like if you're a practitioner, you understand energy and you're looking to work, like you want to learn the hollow bone or just kind of see what it's involved with, what's the best way for them to do that?
Okay, so we have an intro class called Awaken Your Inner Guidance. I think I've changed the name about 3 times, and I may not have updated the website yet, so I will get that done as soon as possible. But that's just a real small class. We have like 4 days, 2 hours each, where we're taking a look at how we're sensing energy, even if you've had trouble with that in the past, and even if there's some ways you'd like to sense that you're not doing, this will still work for you. It will help you to understand yourself better and to work with your ways of observing energy. It helps you to begin to trust your inner guidance by teaching some of these principles about highest and best and getting into our hearts. And then to begin to have more confidence in your ability to be the hollow bone for yourself. And then with that, we also then have the course itself, the Hollow Bone Journey, which is 3 levels of diving into being the hollow bone for yourself, learning how to be the hollow bone for others, helping you to open your heart more so that you are able to be a better hollow bone, if you will, a better and cleaner and clearer hollow bone for others, helping to clear what comes up when you open your heart, because when we open our heart, usually the things that we have suppressed and denied and held back are the very first things that are going to be coming up. And so learning how to heal those is the next level. And then once you've opened and healed your heart, you are really ready to activate whatever that next level of your soul purpose is. And for some people, it's really about just finding that level of peace that they've been desiring in their life. So it could be that simple. For others, it can be healing an autoimmune disease. For others, it can be writing a book or creating a class or starting their practice or scaling their practice. There's so many things it could be. I mean, everybody's different. So no matter what you're working on, whether it's health or finances or relationships or your career, it's going to take you for what you're ready for and take you farther into that. And that's what we call the activation. And what makes this so beautiful between the opening, the healing, and the activation is that it's a system that keeps on working no matter where you are in your life. Because as so you activate something and you think, oh, that's wonderful. Is that all there is? No, of course not, because we are constantly growing and changing and evolving. And so what happens is you end up starting it all over again, maybe realizing it, maybe without realizing it. Oh, look, there's something that's coming up to pay attention to. Oh, look, there's something that needs healing around that. Oh, look, I'm now ready to write another book. Oh, look, I'm now ready to, get into a relationship or maybe enhance my current relationships or whatever it might be. So no matter where you are, it just keeps helping you over and over and over again. That's what's so beautiful about this. And this whole system was channeled. So, I mean, of course it's going to be perfect because I could never have created anything like this. Do you know what I mean? And when you look at most modalities and therapies, they have these ceilings. You can only go so far with them. There's only 9 angels. There's only 7 hand positions. I mean, it's like, no, come on. Source is much more creative than this. And there are more answers than, we have questions. There's more ways of doing things, in other words. And so that's what this system gives to you, is the limitless possibilities to make your unbelievable believable.
Yeah. So perfectly put, because I feel like that's the thing that I had to let go of being, yeah, sure, we've got some statistics, which is my least favorite thing now in this world since I've started to, kind of be more like this. I'm like, statistics are crap. But some
it can
of
be
it
manipulated.
Yeah, 100%, right? But it's really more our energy around it, right? We don't take statistics as a learning experience about what might be and then some. We take it and just leave it, and the ideas of all of the people that have come before us. I've said this a million times, well, where did they get their information from? It's coming back around. Carl Jung, he was crazy. He was a whack, right? They were like, oh my God, what's he talking about? Oh, all of a sudden we're talking about shadow work. All of a sudden we're talking about right? But he just sat and he felt and he connected and then he said it. You know what I mean? And then it was people took it and ran with it. So to me, I'm like, oh, that means that there's so much we don't know. That we all should be doing this. We're doing ourselves a disservice by not letting ourselves connect and see what's there. That we can comprehend, that we can share. It's very much you know, like you were saying, this work is for everybody because it's not it's just that direct root we talk about in psychology all the time. We're trying to get to the root because the root feeds the tree, right? And so this is root energy, right? The source energy feeds the tree.
Absolutely. You nailed it.
I got very excited.
Well, it is exciting. I mean, it's the soul gets excited by this because it's oh, limitless possibilities. I've been waiting for this. Because since the time we go into school, we're not looking at limitless possibilities,
Absolutely. And and the thing of it is too is I think nearly every student or every person or participant of the Hollowbone Journey system repeats it. Nearly every single one of them will repeat levels 1 through 3 when they need to come back because they're in a different space. I mean, I have the gift of facilitating it, and I go through it every single time I do this.
You can't not teach it and not go through it.
Exactly. Well, when you lead meditations and bring in that energy, it's hard not to be affected by it. So I mean, in the Hollowbone Journey, you have it forever, and you're never going to
Yeah.
lose it. And so even if you don't go
No.
back through it with a practitioner, you will have your class forever, which is
Right.
helpful. I swear to
Mhm.
God, oh my God, when I'm prepping for these classes and having to listen and watch the videos of my class that went through it, and I
Mhm.
hear the things that come up and I hear the things that I say and I experience it over again and I see it and I'm like, I am a different human. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm like, I just and the insight to some things, like even more insight comes from just rewatching it. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, I can hear
Yeah.
that now where I couldn't hear it before.
Mhm.
Mhm. It's so
So yeah.
true.
So
Yeah.
in the notes of the podcast, I will link below in the Hollow Bone Journey and
Mhm.
the Awaken, where they can find each
Yeah.
course, each section, and um, yeah. So I am so thrilled you've been here with us and
Oh,
talking
great.
about your books, talking about, that you can make the unbelievable believable, and how you really can step into living a life of your choosing that's in alignment with your heart and spirit, and also really be effective and help people heal quicker, faster, easier, and giving them the knowledge or whatever it is they're needing in that moment to get them to where spirit needs them to be, to where they need to be in
Mm.
their own individual space. So I'm so thrilled. I feel like I was so nervous because, like, Phoenix is the one that always does all the talking, and here I am in a different situation, and I'm like, oh God, I was so nervous. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
I don't want to bomb this, man.
oh
Bombing. It
no.
was too supported to be bombing.
So, but that's just me being real because it was true, because I do. Phoenix, I can't ever thank you enough for channeling what you've
Oh,
channeled and for bringing this into the world, because I know it's
oh,
changed my life and I've seen it change other people's lives as well. I work, the classes I teach and the people that I see them, and
mm,
the understandings, the awakenings, the healings, the aha moments, the release of
yes,
all the pressure people put on themselves. I just witness
yes.
it all the time. And I'm like, I can't not talk about it. So
I know.
I'm grateful for you
It's
to
such a
be here.
blessing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You never sounded nervous at all. You always sound so self-assured. You don't have to worry about what you say. You say from the heart. You're just so perfect at this. And I appreciate you so much as one of our instructors and as a practitioner and podcaster and all that you do to help so many people. Thank you so much. And Vanessa, I don't know you very well, but from the sounds of it, you help a ton of people just from your heart-centered work too. And thank you for doing that. Together we're making the world a better place,
Sure
and
are.
that's what it's all about.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what we're here
Yeah.
for. I mean, I feel like that's what we're here for. Like I literally
Yes.
am like, I can't help it. This is who I am. So I signed up and
Exactly.
I'm gonna do it, right? Like, because I want to
Yes.
be the best at everything. I'm gonna do it, right? So I mean, I appreciate you coming on too, because I feel like, a lot of people, it's like what we were talking about before, the different vibrations of voices and the different ways that things are said, right? Like, and the hollow bone has been present in our podcast over and over and over again. And it's like anybody who listens, finally, like seriously, hearing Phoenix's voice, right? Like I just feel like it elevates things, it puts things together. You know what I mean? Like it kind of just is other pieces of the puzzle, and it was time now to do it. And so I'm really
Yeah.
grateful that we made it happen, because I mean it is a holiday weekend and we're doing it. So good for us.
We're doing it. We made a commitment. There was a soul commitment, and we did it.
It was
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, you guys. This has been fantastic. I so appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, angels, all the information is going to be linked below. And if you want more information and you didn't see the links or don't have access to them for some reason or another, please reach out
Mhm.
to us. We're happy to share with how to get in touch with Phoenix through her
Mhm.
website, through social
Yep.
media, and all the
Yep.
places. We thank you for being here. And angels, see us next week and we'll talk about more fun stuff. Take
Okay.
care, everybody.
Bye.
If you were triggered by anything said in this podcast, please dial 911 or go to your local emergency room.
More deeply understand your unique emotional reaction to today's podcast, I'd love for you to connect with me. You can find me at vanessaperrycounselor@gmail.com or at www.vanessaperry.net.
And if you wish to take your healing further through energy work or channeling angels or the highest level beings, please reach out to me, Grace, at graceevergreen.com or graceevergreen@outlook.com.
And always remember, you are loved,
You're worthy.
and the world needs your light.